Okay, so thanks for joining everyone. Apologies for the slight delay in getting started there. So welcome to the Exploring Dynamic Healthcare webinar. And with you today, we've got Lee Francis, who is Healthcare Strategy Lead at TISCI, and myself, Ben Austin, and I'm Operations Director at TISCI. So, brief overview of the agenda for today's session. In just a second, I'll hand over to Lee to take you through some of the key challenges that we have identified, many of which I'm sure will be familiar to yourselves. Key challenges that we've identified in today's NHS and healthcare environment. And then we'll move to talk a bit about how one of the solutions that we have implemented at TISCI, a solution called Help Forward, can help with some of those challenges. We'll then move on to a brief overview of the functionality and the benefits of Health Forward for NHS and other healthcare organisations, before talking about next steps, next actions, and how we can work more closely with organisations such as yourselves to deliver some of those benefits of Health Forward. And then finally, a bit of time for any questions. So, handing over to Lee to start with.
Hello, Ben. That's a great play on words, isn't it? Exploring dynamic healthcare. It's exactly what healthcare is. A continually dynamic, 24/7, 365, always moving entity. There are just so many fronts to keep up with innovation. The huge strides in technology and medicine that are making during this fourth industrial revolution, the great awareness of cyber threats since WannaCry, and statutory regulations such as GDPR means a never-ending stream of projects, which of course, when applied, will have significant positive impact to operational efficiency and better patient outcomes. I've been fortunate enough to work in a range of care types during my 13 years with the NHS, acute, provider services and commissioning, and I see the same challenges time and time again. The IT and clinical services team, they're already stretched to deliver BAU. They've got a burgeoning projects list and then limited oversight of progress, risk and dependencies between projects. It makes prioritization and risk assessment incredibly difficult when you don't have a clear picture of demand versus available resources. And part of the challenge is that the IT departments have their own list of must-dos. They live and breathe their infrastructure. They're deeply technical and they've usually got a clear path of upgrades and mitigations to risk over the next few years. The problem is, it's not usually exciting tech, and it can be quite difficult to articulate the need up the management chain and secure the funding for it. You've then got clinical tender wins, sequins, SIP, QUIP, and the operational plan coming down from the board, alongside direct requests from the clinical community who are not used to being told no. It's coming at them from all directions. Health Forward gives you the opportunity to present an unequivocal picture of demand versus available resources, prioritization, and then a platform to justify additional resource. And it's particularly important for oversight and management of activities and budgets across multiple organisations within the health economy as STP initiatives are delivered. In addition to a platform for project managers, Health Forward gives empowerment to senior leads to see for themselves exactly what the state of play is for the projects that will be impacting their workforce and patients, which is invaluable. So I think you're going to talk a little bit more about Health Forward now and then give us a demo.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Lee. So just before we launch into to the overview, the demo of Health Forward, a bit of an overview of exactly what Health Forward is and who it's for as a solution. So fundamentally, Health Forward is an NHS program management solution. It's been built on the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Solutions platform, which is a well-proven, time-tested, enterprise-level business solutions platform, which gives us and users huge amounts of flexibility and control over their business processes. And it's targeted and focused on the needs of CCGs, CSUs, healthcare partnerships, and providers in general. And really the focus of what it provides is the ability to manage NHS projects, programs and portfolios, those dependencies, risks and issues which are inherent in the management of complex projects, and to allow users to track the outcomes of those projects against strategic objectives and STPs, as well as being able to manage the detailed timeline and budgets across those projects, portfolios and programs, as well as being able to visualize those programs of work as a coherent and holistic picture of what's going on ultimately within the organization. And we really see a number of key benefits to organisations such as yourselves from Health Forward. So obviously there's a strong focus on the NHS approach to project management, although that is ultimately a configurable process of how those projects are delivered, and we'll talk more about that as part of the demo in just a minute. And as well as providing that ability to manage and structure those projects, we also have the ability to provide real-time analytics and dashboarding around that key information, as well as exposing key information to external third parties, external stakeholders and other interested parties in a very secure and manageable web-facing portal. And then in terms of how we as an organisation deliver Health Forward to partners such as yourselves as a solution, it's a very rapid delivery approach, low risk, fixed price solution delivery, which we'll look at a little bit more in just a moment. But ultimately a very customizable approach which can be tailored to meet your specific needs. Okay, so without further ado, we'll have a run through some of the key functionality of Health Forward and look at really what Health Forward can provide to three different types of people. So we'll start out with Tricia, who is our Chief Operating Officer. We'll then have a look at Dan, the Project Manager, and finally we'll look at from the point of view of Erin, who is a third-party external stakeholder. So to start with in our demo of Health Forward, we will take on the role of Tricia, who is our Chief Operating Officer. Now, the key focus for Tricia here within Health Forward is to get that very high-level overview of the projects, programs and portfolios that are underway within the organisation that are being managed by various PMs and others within the organisation, and to understand at a very high level the relationships and dependencies between those projects and programs of work, where the risks and potential impacts across the organisations lie, and how they align with the strategic objectives of the organisation. And one of the tools that Tricia has within Health Forward to be able to do that is our programme dashboard. Now, this is a set of visualisations that are built into Health Forward and that provide a very high level overview of key information around projects, portfolios and programmes of work. So we can see, to start with, the breakdown of resource requests across the organisation, so what projects require which resources and when. We can see a breakdown of what projects we have currently underway by the stage of the project lifecycle they're currently set at. And we also have a project RAG report, which gives us an overview of red, amber, green status of the projects. Now, any of those high-level visualizations we can pop open and view in more detail, including the projects that are associated with each of those categories. And we'll see here within our project stage overview. We have a list of all of the projects that are displayed on the chart there, or displayed alongside the chart, and by selecting any item on the chart, any of those bars on the chart, we can automatically filter just to see the projects that, as we can see here, are currently sat at the delivery stage, and we can see key information about those projects too. So going back to the dashboard then, as well as those high-level visualizations across the projects, we can drill down into the detail of risks and issues associated with those projects, either at a program level, as we're currently viewing, or across all of the projects, programs and portfolios across the whole organization. And we have a number of options here within our view of risks. We can order those based on the risk score, which gives us an understanding of the likelihood and impact of each of those risks. And we can view the current status of those risks alongside any mitigations that are potentially in place for dealing with those risks and issues. We can see who the owner of those risks are and who's responsible for managing them in case of any follow-up that may be required. And moving on from the risks and issues view of things, we can see an overview of all of the projects that are currently underway within the organisation. And we can view those based on the programme they're part of, or the portfolio of work that they're part of, and we'll see in just a minute some further options for being able to visualize the relationships between our projects, programs of work and portfolios. And for each of those projects we can see some key metrics around status and progress in terms of delivery against the project plan, in terms of spend against budget, and in terms of an overall view of whether we're on budget, on track, and so on. Now, as well as having that overview of the projects that are currently in flight, Tricia as COO is understandably interested in the strategic objectives of the organisation and how the projects, programs and portfolios align with those strategic objectives. And again, taken straight from STPs here, we've got a breakdown of some key strategic objectives across the organisation. We've got examples there: equity of access to services, integrated care for people, better and more equal outcomes, excellence in service delivery, improved health and well-being, improved care for people, and the last one there is empowered users who are experts in managing their care needs. So again, some examples there from STPs, and what we can do at this with this visualization is we can see for each of those strategic objectives what projects and programs of work are aligned to those objectives, and by selecting one of those projects that's associated with an objective, we can understand the current RAG status and any other key information about that project and whether that's likely to have an impact on the objective. We can also view it from the other side. We can view across all the projects currently in place. We can identify one here, the rehabilitation project, that has a red status, so there's some significant concerns associated with its delivery. We can very easily see all of the strategic objectives there that this rehabilitation project is aligned with, and we can straight away drill into any potential impact of that project across the organisation and its objectives. And this view is a Power BI report, Power BI being a business intelligence and data visualization tool from Microsoft, which is embedded within Health Forward and is one example of how we can leverage the capabilities of Power BI to visualize data in quite a novel way. So moving on from these high-level visualizations, we'll take a look at the detail of some of the projects, or at least from a COO's point of view, how those projects, portfolios and programs of work relate together. So Drilling into the project view here, we can see we've got a breakdown organised by portfolio, and within that portfolio, which is our clinical improvement portfolio, the 3 programs of work associated with that, so integrated care, cardiology and primary care. And then within our programs of work, for example integrated care here, we can see all of the projects that are part of that program. So we had the rehabilitation project there, which we identified from our strategic objectives visualization as being flagged as a red project. And we can see, again, key high-level status information about that and all of the other projects that are currently in flight. Now, if we were to drill into one of these projects or programs of work, certainly as a COO in this case, we could make use of an alternative visualization to really drill into the relationships between our projects, programs and portfolios. And by clicking on the project visualization option there, we can see a nice intuitive view of, at the top of the tree there, our clinical improvement portfolio, then the 3 programs of work associated with that portfolio, and beneath those programs of work, each of the individual projects that make up those programs. So if we just drill into our portfolio here, we can see at that level RAG status, overall health check of the portfolio, and then details around schedule and cost performance, and also the project manager who's responsible for that. And then for each of the 3 programs of work associated with that portfolio, we can see similar high-level status information, project manager as well. And drilling down into one of those programs, again we can see all of the projects associated with that, so COPD, diabetes, hospitals, home, major trauma, mental health and rehabilitation. Again, the project that we identified as being flagged with a red RAG status earlier. Now if we wanted, we could click through, we won't at this stage, but we could click through and we could view the details of that project, exactly why it sat on a RAG status, the history of activity that's taken place, the current project plan, resources assigned to it, risks and issues, alignment with strategic objectives and so on. Or we could simply chase up the project manager who's listed there and get an update straight from the horse's mouth. Okay, so our next view within Health Forward is that of Dan, who's our project manager. And again, Dan has his own dashboard and set of visualizations within there that give him key information about his projects. So we've got here an overview of Dan's active projects, giving a breakdown of the estimated cost versus actual spend on each project, and also then a high-level overview of the timelines of all of Dan's projects, so we can start to see the overlaps and the potential for impact around resourcing across those different projects. Again, as well as those high-level visualizations, which we could pop out, as we saw from the COO program view earlier on, if we wanted to see more details. We also have a breakdown of each of the projects. Now, the projects view that we're seeing here is what we call the project pipeline view, which gives us a nice simple way of categorizing and prioritizing projects that haven't yet been approved for delivery. So for example, we can see a view of the estimated cost of that project and then the potential benefits of that project, which go into feed a priority score based on things like the business criticality, compliance, efficiency of care and financial sustainability factors, which we may then want to use as say to generate a score to prioritise those projects for delivery. We could also view a list of all of all of Dan's active projects here. So very easily he can see the projects that are under his area of responsibility and what the current situation is, what the high level status is, and the current situation is with each of those projects. And again, from a project manager point of view, we can also see all of the risks and issues that are associated now with Dan's projects. Again, we can organise those based on the risk score, so Dan can focus on the highest impact or highest likelihood risks and focus his attentions there, and very easily see which projects and programmes that those risks are associated with, along with any mitigations and the current status of those risks. So again, very easy for Dan to move from a very high level overview of the kind of information on his projects down into the detail of exactly where he needs to focus his attention using the dashboards here. And again, as we saw earlier when we were taking a look from Trisha's point of view, we can drill down into the individual projects here in Health Forward. And again, Dan has a view of all of his projects that he's currently responsible for, again organised however we want to, in this case by programme and portfolio. And drilling down into one of those projects, in this case our infrastructure upgrade project, we can see all of the detail associated with that project. So front and centre of our project record here, we have what's known as our project lifecycle view. And we've got a number of stages here that have been predefined. Again, these are fully configurable and will be adjusted to meet your own project life cycles. And at each of these life cycle stages, we have the ability to capture key information about the project and also to automate activities that need to take place at this stage. Again, we have our project pipeline view there for prioritisation, key information at the elaboration phase, and again, any information that needs to be captured or activities that need to automatically be carried out can be managed through that project lifecycle view. So then we have some high-level information about our project. We have the project name and a high-level description of exactly what's being delivered under this project, details around the customer, our project manager responsible, and whether this is associated with a parent program of work. We then have some estimates in terms of start and end dates, the amount of effort and cost that will be spent in delivering this project, and then the actuals that have actually been spent. Some narrative details around aims and objectives of the project, and then our status view, which, as we saw earlier, we can track our RAG status of the project, and also automatically calculated our performance against schedule and cost on the project. As you can see, we're currently on this project behind schedule but under budget. We can also see that in a graphical form with a bit more detail, and then an overview of our resourcing and scheduling across the project. So very high level front page information there at the project manager's fingertips. And drilling down into some further detail, I'll come back to some of these areas in just a minute, we can see the detail of the project plan, or as we call it within Health Forward, the work breakdown structure for the project. And what this gives us the ability to see is the individual tasks that are associated with this project and that need to be delivered, and the resources that will be carrying out those tasks, and the timescales within which those tasks will be delivered. Very standard, familiar Gantt chart view, familiar to any project manager, and we can, structured in individual project phases or groups of activities, we can manage each of the tasks associated with this project. And for each of those tasks we can manage the estimate of effort to deliver that, start and end dates, durations for that particular task, any dependencies or predecessor tasks that need to be managed, as well as the role, the project role that is required to deliver that task. we can see there we've got a number of different roles assigned to the individual task. We have infrastructure engineers, project coordinators, and then third-party engineers who'll be carrying out site assessments, hardware procurement and installations. And at the appropriate point within the project's planning phase, we can assign specific individuals to each of those tasks based on the roles that those individuals carry out, their availability and their suitability for that particular project task. And as you'd expect, there is a centralised resourcing calendar and resourcing management capability to simplify that process of assigning resources to your projects and being able to manage those. So, as well as being able to track the individual project plans, we can track documentation against this project. We can see there we have a documents view, which we'll come back and look at how we can generate documents in just a minute. But we'll take now a quick view of our risks and issues associated with this project. So again, similar to how we saw the high-level risks and issues across the whole organisation, so we can, from a project manager's point of view, see the individual risks and issues associated with this particular project and what, if anything, we need to do to manage those. And we can also, as we saw earlier, view the strategic objectives, in this case aligned with our specific project. And we can see that our infrastructure upgrade project here is aligned to the equity of access and improved health and well-being strategic objectives. So we touched on the ability to manage documents within Health Forward just a minute ago, and in this case we can generate a project RAG report. So with one click from Health Forward, we can, based on a standard Word template, pre-generated Word template, we can generate our RAG report. Some high-level information in there around the project description, the team aligned to that project, and the overall RAG status, currently green as we can see there, along with a list of all the risks and issues associated with the project, and then some more narrative detail around the current activity on the project. Again, all of this can be modified and added to by the project manager to provide further narrative as required for their reporting. Okay, so the final person who choose will be stepping into as part of our Health Forward overview is Erin Shah. Now, Erin is our council leader, and as such, he has a vested interest as an external stakeholder in a number of the programs of work and projects that we're managing within our organisation. And in order to provide Erin and other third-party external stakeholders with the information they need about those projects and programs of work in a timely and up-to-date manner, we have the Health Forward Partner Portal. The Partner Portal is an externally facing web portal, fully accessible over the internet to any authorised users, and within that we have very close control over the information that we can publish over the portal and those users that are authorised to view that information. Now, as you'll see from the screen in front of you, we've got a number of options around customising the portal in terms of look and feel, organisation logos, images and so on. Typically that would be configured as part of the deployment of Health Forward to meet your website look and feel. Now, at the moment, I'm logged in as an authorised user here, and as an authorised user, I have a number of options available to me. So if I view my partner homepage here, I can see I have options to either view programs that I have access to or individual projects that I have visibility of. So if I go ahead and click into the programs view, I can see here the integrated care program, which you'll remember from earlier in the overview. And at the moment, as Erin, that's the only one of the 3 programs that I am granted access to. There are other programs that are currently in progress, but this is the only one I have visibility of. Again, some simple high-level information around the status and the situation on that particular program. And if I click through into that, I can see as part of an analytics dashboard key information about this program. So I can see the overall health of the program in terms of a RAG status, the trend of the portfolio of work, days spent on that project or that program of work and those remaining, and also highlighted there are any at-risk projects that form part of this program of work, of which we have one which you may remember is our rehabilitation project, which is flagged as a red RAG status there. Again, for each of the projects that are associated with this program, we have key high-level information about that, and then a bit more detail there in our project widgets further down the page. Now, if there are any documents associated with this program of work, we can also see them from this dashboard, or in this case we can click through and have a bit of a closer look at the rehabilitation project here, which is standing out as being maybe cause for concern. So clicking through then into the rehabilitation project, we can see again key information that's of interest to our external stakeholders like Erin. So we have the project sponsor for this particular project, how far we are in terms of progress to the next milestone, and the overall RAG status. And we then have some more narrative detail around a description of the project, what progress has been made since the last reporting period, and any key actions that are planned for the next period. We can then see an overview of any open risks and issues and the criticality or the level of those risks and issues. And then we can see those risks and issues in more detail in our tables further down the list here. And again, if we wanted to drill into any of those risks and issues, just like we can within the Health Forward application that we saw earlier from a project manager's point of view, we can click through and see the detail of each of those risks, mitigations, and the current scoring. And again, we can flag those risks and issues as either internal or external, so if necessary we can hide them away from external stakeholders. Finally then, we have any key project tasks that are associated with this project, so we can see the next steps and key actions that are to be taken. And nice and simply there, we can provide a significant amount of very detailed information to those external stakeholders without any overhead in terms of management of that data. Okay, so hopefully that was a useful overview of some of the key capabilities and benefits of Health Forward as a solution for NHS organisations and other healthcare organisations. So in terms of the next steps and where we can go from here, you know, we'd be very happy at TISCI to provide you a more detailed view of Health Forward and the benefits that can be tailored very closely to the needs of your organisation, and we can do that through a face-to-face demo if you'd like to contact us on any of the methods below. And in terms of how we go about implementing Health Forward organisations such as yourselves, as we touched on earlier, it's a very rapid, low-risk implementation approach. Typically 6-week duration to deploy the solution and get you up and running. Fixed price of 59k, which includes configuration, training, and support to get your team up and running. Dynamics 365 licenses are required to access Health Forward, and again, we would be more than happy to advise and guide you on exactly what licenses will be required and how best to match them to the number of users and the needs of your individual users. So nice, straightforward, low risk, rapid approach to delivering Health Forward and getting you up and running and reaping the benefits of the functionality that we've just seen. So in terms of getting in contact with us at TISCI then, a couple of options here. By all means, if you'd like some more information, downloads, product fact sheets and so on Health Forward, you can visit our website at tisky.com, and there's a Health Forward section there just for NHS organisations and healthcare providers. We'd love to have you join our LinkedIn group to discuss the subject dynamic healthcare in more detail. And again, there's a link there that will get you access. Or finally, if you'd like to, please feel free to drop us a line at info@tisky.com, and we'd be more than happy to discuss your needs in more detail there. Okay, so I hope that was a useful and informative session, and we look forward to seeing you in future. Thanks a lot. Bye.